Is your dog disinterested in his or her food lately? Here's what might be going on, according to a vet. Welcome back to Alpha Paw, your destination for everything dog. I'm Bernie Zilio, and I'm on a personal mission to answer every doggone question you have ever had about your fur babies. And today, we are talking about why your normally kibble-obsessed dog might just not be eating so much lately. Fortunately, we have an expert with us today, Dr. Ross Bernstein. Dr. Ross is a seasoned veterinary professional and pet care expert. He earned his doctorate degree in veterinary medicine at UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, and his work has been featured in several industry-leading publications, including the Journal of Veterinary Surgery. He is our go-to vet for everything we want and need to know about our fur babies. So welcome back to Alpha Paw, Dr. Ross.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. This is such a hot topic. I know, personally speaking, that when my dog isn't eating, I panic. I think everything is wrong. And the reality is there could be a plethora of reasons why he's not eating or our viewers' dogs aren't eating. But I would like to discuss some of the more common ones with you today. And the very first one on the list is that your dog might be sick. So how do you know how serious it is or when to take them to the vet or what to do? Can you kind of just educate us on that?
The dog's appetite is one of the biggest indicators or clinical signs that we as people can use to notice in our dogs that they're not feeling too good and that there might be something wrong. So, I mean, there are times when maybe you're overfeeding your dog and then they're not going to be as hungry as they usually would. But usually if they've skipped a meal, and definitely if they've skipped 2 meals, that's definitely a cause for concern. So it's really important to know your dog and know what's normal for them. So it could be anything from not that serious to they just ate something that they don't normally eat, can have a little bit of upset stomach or some GI issues, to something more serious, such as an intestinal obstruction or blockage or even cancer. So it can be a whole range of different things. And so that's why it's important to know your dog and what they normally do.
So I think what's really interesting, and I was a first time, pet parent when I got my dog Pod, is I always assumed that when you put food down in front of dogs, they just eat it all up every single time. There's food in front of them, they just go crazy. And my dog, I learned, was a grazer. And I had to do the research and realize, okay, that's normal. So I guess, Dr. Ross, you're saying is just know how your dog eats and see if there's something abnormal about their eating habits.
Right. So if they're fed in meals, like twice a day, for example, it's probably a bit more obvious when they skip a meal. And for dogs that are free fed, or I think the medical word is ad libitum, where they just have available food to eat anytime they want, which is an acceptable way of feeding for sure. Some different styles of feeding work for different families than others. But if you notice that food is still in the bowl the next day and they haven't eaten, and they're also lethargic, or they're vomiting, or they're having diarrhea, or they're acting unusual, then chances are something's up.
Okay. So how can we tell the difference between my dog's just not hungry or versus something that's seriously wrong with them, or something that's minorly wrong with them? How do we know if this is something that's so common in dogs?
A lot of that is up to your veterinarian to try to figure out what the underlying cause is. So we don't always know, but if the not eating is, number one, I would say, for how long have they not been eating? Number two, if there's vomiting that goes along with that, if there's diarrhea, if there's abdominal pain, if they're very lethargic, if they're just kind of lying there and not wanting to do anything, I would say that's a bit more serious than just not eating if they're otherwise acting normal. Something very interesting that I learned in my early stages of my veterinary career, sometimes intact male dogs, if they're around intact females that are in heat, they just don't eat, but they're otherwise normal, running around and happy and doing everything. They just have one thing on their mind, and that's not food.
I would have never known that. So I'm so happy that you just kind of like dropped that nugget on us.
Yeah,
That's
they go
so
on hunger
interesting.
strikes.
That's so interesting. So as a veterinarian, when a dog comes in, the owner says, my dog hasn't been eating. What are some of the first things that cross your mind, or what are some of the first things that you kind of look out for?
A decreased appetite, it can be dietary indiscretion, which is very common in younger dogs where they're very indiscriminate eaters and will eat all sorts of things. So we're thinking of unusual foods or toxins. That can also lead to gastroenteritis, which is inflammation of the intestinal tract and stomach, pancreatitis, which they can get from eating foods that are too high in fat. They can have an intestinal obstruction, which is if they ate something and it actually causes a blockage. In puppies, they can have worms. I mean, any dog really can have can have worms, but it's most common in puppies. In older dogs, if they're not eating, sometimes we start to think of a bit more sinister causes, including diabetes, kidney disease, liver disease, cancer, a couple of more worse prognostic factor, worse diseases.
That breaks my heart. I mean, I know I've always heard if your dog's not eating, that's definitely something to pay attention to and look out for. And again, my dog is a grazer, so I don't really panic if he didn't eat breakfast. But if he didn't eat breakfast and he didn't eat dinner, and the next day comes around, I think it's very important to just know your dog, which I think is what you're saying.
So it can be a whole range of stuff, but it could be also due to the food itself that they're eating. The food could be expired. It could have gotten moistened and now has mold growing in it. It could have dental disease or toothache. So it can be a whole range of stuff. And it can be anywhere from very serious causes to other stuff that's benign and can resolve on its own.
So what you're saying is if your dog's not eating, he or she, it could be nothing and it could be everything. So there's a million, like we said at the beginning of this video, there's a million reasons why your dog might not be eating. But I think, like you have said, it's so important to look at other symptoms. Are they lethargic? Are they behaving differently? Are they vomiting? There's so many different things. The food expiration date is a big one. I don't think people realize that dog food can expire. And sometimes your dog's just not into expired food, nor should you be feeding that to them. So this has been extremely informative, and I feel like we all have a little bit more knowledge and information about what to do if our dogs are not eating. So thank you so much, Dr. Ross. As always, it has been a pleasure. If you guys have any more questions, comments, or concerns, please drop them down in the comment section below. Again, I'm Bernie Zilio, and this is Alpha Paw. Be sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a single doggone episode. We'll see you next time.